Hi, this is Under the Covers, and this is going to be about A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. A Man Called Ove was Fredrik Backman's debut novel written in 2012. Back when I was working for a media company called the Tempest, I reviewed this book for their 2019 reading challenge. I selected this book from the category in their list for books that were originally written in another language. This book was originally written in Swedish, and in a Goodreads interview, Backman said that he doesn't like to interfere too much with his translators. The translator in this case was Henning Koch, and I must say, I can't speak for people who've read the Swedish version of this book, but to me this seemed perfectly done. Nothing seemed to be missing or out of place, nothing seemed lost in translation. I wrote a book review for this in an article for The Tempest, and one of the things I said in that article was, if I could describe how this book would taste, I would say it tastes like digestive biscuits, which turn out to be surprisingly a lot more sweeter than you'd expect. And as weird as that sounds, I can kind of see why I said that, and I think I'd still stand by that statement. So this book is about a man named Ove, who is the classic definition of a grumpy old man. Ove is a total stickler for guidelines and rules and the way things should be, and he believes everyone else should be exactly the same. Which is why he kind of believes he is surrounded by idiots. Ove is the neighborhood angry old man who will go out of his way to make sure that everyone is doing things exactly how they should be or how he thinks they should be. Have you ever met someone and came out of that experience thinking, wow, this was such a negative person? They're always in a bad mood and they're always judging everyone? Chances are you probably met me at some point, but this is one of the reasons I think I so sympathized with Ove. This is not just because I already feel like a grumpy old man at this age, but because I can kind of see where he was coming from. However, as the story unfolds, readers can kind of see that there is much more to him than meets the eye. I feel like this book shatters the idea that you can tell anything or everything about a person from appearances alone. I would be very surprised if by the end of this, readers didn't sort of fall in love with Ove. This book had the ability to make me laugh and then make me sad in the same chapter. A Man Called Ove has some pretty hilarious scenarios, and a lot of them are brought about by the new addition to Uve's neighborhood when a new family moves in right next door, and they are enthusiastic and interfering, and they refuse to be put off by his grumpy attitude or his unwillingness to socialize. They're just dead set on wanting to bond with him. The story also deals with its fair share of sadness. Like, it deals with loss and illness and unfairness and loneliness. And in the midst of it all, there's this old man who has kind of lost the will to keep living and just wants to put an end to his life. Now, I am not the kind of person that cries when reading or watching a movie, but I would be lying if I said that there weren't certain parts of this book that felt overwhelming. I would say that this is the kind of book that is deep without being heavy. This is the kind of book that will show you that everyone, no matter how hopeless they may seem, have the ability to love and be loved. I have to mention this particularly beautifully written chapter about Ove and his former best friend, Rune. I sincerely hope I'm pronouncing the name right. I tried to look it up because I don't want to be disrespectful, and I believe it is Rune. It's not something I can explain, but that chapter explains how their friendship sort of fell apart because of the cars that these men chose to buy. And it's not because they were trying to outdo each other with more expensive and fancier cars. It's pretty hard to explain, but by reading that chapter, you see how the cars that these men bought meant something. They said something that the other person understood. And how, as time passed, they bought cars that made a statement to the other person. And how through their choice of cars, their friendship kind of fell apart. I'm not going to try to explain this. I know it's hard to understand, but I just had to mention it because that chapter is touching in such a surprising way. Again, it's not something that I can explain without reading the whole chapter to you, but trust me when I say it's sad. On an opposite note, one of the most hilarious things about this book was how the writer mentioned Ove sometimes looking at people and objects in a very particular way. For example, Ove gives the box a skeptical glance, as if it's a highly dubious sort of box, a box that rides a scooter, wears a tracksuit, and just called Ove my friend before offering to sell him a watch. Ove looks at the book more or less as if it just sent him a chain letter insisting that the book was really a Nigerian prince who had a very lucrative investment opportunity for Ove and now only needed Uve's account number to sort something out. I don't know about you, but every time a description like this was mentioned, I knew exactly the kind of look that Ove was giving. I don't often finish a book and say that I have no complaints, but in this case, I really don't. This book was also adapted into a movie in 2015, and while I'm not exactly a fan of books being adapted into movies, to me they never turn out really well, and I don't like to ruin the experience of a good read. I think in this case, I might actually give it a try. Overall, this book was touching without being cliche. It was funny without being crude, and it was sad without being overdramatic. This is the kind of book I would definitely recommend to you, especially if you're the no-nonsense type of person. If you're the type of person that has still got a well-hidden but in there somewhere soft sentiment, I would definitely suggest you give this book a try. And keep reading. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next one.